So I posted,
Who's that Pokemon?
Yu-Gi-Oh! Has existed for over 20 years, 25 years to be exact, and a lot of text and specifically problem-solving card text has evolved and changed over the years. It started with kind of badly translated text from Japanese, then a little bit more intentional, and now we have sort of this PSET system that helps us read and understand cards. Does it actually work? Not really. New players have a really hard time understanding the nuances and intricacies of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards effect. So on our live stream, we tried to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Easier and simpler. And of course, to preface this, there's a lot of nuances to Yu-Gi-Oh! This exercise cannot solve all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card text, but it can give you a glimpse on maybe how we can start a conversation towards improving Yu-Gi-Oh! To try to maybe help new players get into the game a little bit easier with things like keywords, numbering, bullet points, and, just simpler, straightforward card text. And once you're done, of course, leave your comments below. There are probably a lot of pretty strong opinions on this one, so I want to read them. Enjoy. Is it even possible to do this with today's game? Rewrite Pot of Greed. It's going to be really hard to do. There are a lot of different things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That could have been one thing. Card activation, card effect, effect activation. Those are three different things that, even though they serve a purpose in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they make sense within an ecosystem, it doesn't really exist in other card games. If you just look at the Bestial Lubellion, just as an example, the first card we see, okay, there's a restriction here, and then you can summon this once per turn. That makes sense. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and then we have a semicolon here, what signifies the cost, and then the effect happens after that. And then again, during the main phase, colon. So what does that mean? If a new player reads into this, what's the difference between a colon and a semicolon? Those are the exact nuances that I'm talking about. We have a few keywords. For example, excavate. That is a keyword. Banished. This was not always something that existed in Yu-Gi-Oh! Previously, this says removed from play. Piercing. Air Knight Parshat, I think it was released in Legacy of Darkness, which is 2003. It did not say piercing damage. It says inflict damage equal to the difference between the attack of the attacking monster and the defense of the defending monster or whatever.
One eternity later.
It's a mess. We're gonna figure out how to fix Yu-Gi-Oh! To make it much more legible. So you can see that, for example, if we look at Hearthstone, carried over from Magic, counter. A card that is countered has no effect. Turn this into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Effect. You can take Dragoon, discard one card, or even discard one, because you don't need to say the word card. You're not discarding from the graveyard, you're not discarding from the deck, and we're going to talk about that specifically, but discard one, counter an effect or activation, and if you do, destroy it, blah, 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 right? When a card or effect is activated, or when a card or effect is activated, you can negate the why does it need to be optional if you're activating the effect? We're gonna try and start with an easy one here. And that's gonna be Pot of Duality. This is gonna be our first exercise here. We're not changing symbols, we're not changing anything like that. Nothing is gonna change here. What does Pot of Duality actually do, right? Pot of Duality is hard once per turn. So we're gonna write once. And the equivalent to that when it comes to soft once per turn, which is also a pretty ridiculous concept to have in the first place, but that's fine. Soft ones can be once per copy. Excavate 3. Add one excavated card. The reason why I didn't add a colon here, you don't have to change and make everything shorter, but we do want to make everything simpler. All of this effect will either resolve or not. There's no reason to add a colon here. And we have a keyword here in excavate, and we also have once, which is a hard once per turn. That's it. That's the effect of Pot of Duality. But this is the simple one, right? Hello. So Dragoon today says, cannot be destroyed by card effects. What if we just call it Indestructible? And we're gonna differentiate that from cannot be destroyed by battle. Destroyed by battle will be invincible. So untargetable at the very base. Is that not a word? Untargetable? Unmarketable? Untraceable? Targetable? Is it intargetable? It has to be untargetable. That's it. Cannot be destroyed, cannot be targeted. It's not by battle because battle is invincible, and it's by neither player. So if it would have been like cannot be targeted by your opponent, untargetable by your opponent. Use enhanced spell check. Okay, so the first effect is the pop and burn. If an effect doesn't mention quick effect, if it's not otherwise mentioned, an ignition effect can only be in the main phase. The first effect is very simple. Destroy one opposing monster. Burn or X, because you cannot special summon this from the graveyard using normal monsters. You can destroy one monster your opponent controls. Oh, and if you do. Yeah, it has to say if you do. Destroy one opposing monster, because it doesn't target. And it doesn't need to say during the main phase, because this is an ignition effect. This is basically the first effect. This is it. Discard one, quick effect. Why am I not mentioning cost here? Because we have already mentioned other effects. If they don't have a target, they just activate. Oh, it's still Kelbeck, holy crap. I mean, once per copy, discard one, quick effect, counter activation or effect. So the X and Y, it does save us a lot of complication in explaining burn your opponent for that monster's original attack. It makes it a little bit easier, I think, just to understand. Indestructible, untargetable, destroy one opposing monster, and if you do, burn your opponent for X. X being that monster's original attack. I think that's much simpler to understand. You can only activate this effect Y times per turn, Y being the number of normal monsters used to summon this card. Quick effect, negate activation or effect, and if you do, destroy that card, and if you do, gains a talent. I don't like the if you do part, but you know, this is Legacy, Yu-Gi-Oh! This is pretty good. It creates a few different variables, like burn, and once per copy, discard one. And if it needs to discard a monster, we would say discard a monster, obviously, right? I think this is the coolest card. Blue Eyes, Chaos Max, Dragon. But this is the card. Must be ritual summoned, indestructible, untargetable by your opponent, inflicts double piercing damage. Piercing also being a keyword in Yu-Gi-Oh! We're good on Chaos Max, right? Like, this is Chaos Max. There's nothing else that we can do here. Let's do Chimera, the Illusion Beast. It has something very interesting because we can come up with a keyword if this card battles a monster. Both gain invincible. Should we just say elude? And elude means that neither monster can be destroyed by battle when battling this monster. Or we could just say like both are invincible, but I think elude is interesting. Elude. So when Jerome McHale introduced illusion types, he said the illusion monsters are not really there. They are there, but not really there. They're an illusion. This is why they cannot be destroyed by battle, but they can also not destroy by battle. So it's basically elude. It needs to be an attribute that is common to illusion monsters. Is it elude in like this? Elude. Elude. Evade or escape from danger. Dude, elude. It just has elude. This is perfect. I love elude. So elude is the attribute that illusion beasts will have, like illusion monsters will have from now. After damage calculation, when this card battles, the opposing monster's attack becomes 0, also its effects are negated. 2. Can attack monsters X times each battle phase, X being the number of materials used to summon this. This is not necessarily a lot shorter, but I think in terms of comprehension, once you know what the keywords mean, but I think this is like a little bit easier to parse, just to understand. I think this is pretty solid. I like this. Yoink is exchange. Well, we have Endymion Circular here. Even the name is long. Endymion, the mighty master of magic, right? Remove 6 spell counters from your field. Summon this card. It doesn't need to say from the pendulum zone because it's a pendulum effect. Then destroy up to X cards on the field, X being the number of cards you control that can have spell counters. And if you do, place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed. Then count the number of cards you control that can have a spell counter, destroy up to that many cards on the field. No way, man. There's no way. Oh, it's once. It's once. It doesn't need to have one because it's all one freaking effect. It's one effect. Once per copy quick effect, bounce one card with a spell counter to negate a spell or trap, effect or activation, and destroy it. Then place X spell counters on this card, X being the number of spell counters that the return card had. We have to say an if you do. Negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Oh wait, but this is only the first effect. Oh god. Okay. We have a second effect. No, it's no biggie. If Konami allows us to say dies, can we say dies?
Not after he sent my grandpa to the Shadow Realm.
The what realm?
You know, the Shadow Realm.
Boom! Is it better than destroyed by battle? It saves 3 words, and it's invincible if it can't die. Yeah, people don't read cards anyway. I think we fixed Demian. Once per copy, quick effect, bounce one card with a spell counter to negate a spell or trap effect or activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then place X spell counters on this card, X being the number of spell counters on the returned card. Indestructible and untargetable by your opponent while it has a spell counter. This should probably be effect number 1. When this card with the spell counter dies, search one normal spell. This is also good for comprehension here. Let's count the words. This is 100. The original monster effect is 107 words. Our effect is, drumroll please, 68 words. This is pretty tight. I like this. We cut it by a third, and it's so clear. Indestructible, untargetable, Demian, solved. Goodbye, Triff, peace, see ya later. Yeah, why do we even play this game?